Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're involved in coaching, training, or, just trying to optimize your own performance, you know that the difference between good and great can come down to the smallest details.
Things like where exactly you place a rest break.
Exactly. Today, we are taking a deep plunge into the science of recovery and power. We're looking at how scheduling rest periods within a set can make athletes more explosive and more resilient.
Our mission today is very targeted. We're analyzing the precise impact of different rest configurations in these really intense training protocols.
So we're looking at traditional exhaustive sets versus a more modern approach.
That's right. An approach that injects these small strategic rest breaks right in the middle of a set. And this isn't just theory. We're digging into which method actually delivers superior adaptations for power, speed, and recovery.
And the research guiding us is exceptionally focused. We're pulling insights from an article titled Effects of Cluster versus Traditional Sets, Complex Training on Physical Performance Adaptations of Trained Male Volleyball Players.
A great study. It was authored by Rong and Chen Xiu, and you can find it in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine. It was published in 2024, volume 23.
And the big question they're unpacking is whether placing a really short rest period within a set, what they call cluster sets, gets you better results than the standard way of doing things.
It's a fundamental challenge to how we structure high-intensity training.
Okay, so let's start with the sport they chose, volleyball. Why is this group so relevant for a study on power?
Well, if you look at the physical demands, volleyball is just a constant series of explosive actions.
All that jumping.
Exactly. The sources point out that elite players can do over 150 maximum effort jumps in a single match. So if you want to improve those spikes, those blocks, you absolutely had to maximize lower body strength and explosive power.
It's the critical factor. And to get those massive power gains, coaches often use something called complex training, or COX. For anyone listening who might not live in the gym, what exactly is COX?
Complex training is a really potent system. It combines heavy resistance exercises, so think your max effort back squat or leg press, with biomechanically similar plyometric movements.
So you're pairing a heavy lift with an explosive jump.
Right. You might do a heavy set of squats, rest for a bit, and then immediately go into maximum effort squat jumps.
The idea isn't just to get tired, though. It's to prime the muscle for something more. What's the physiological mechanism here? Why is that combination so much better than just doing one or the other?
It all comes down to something we call post-activation potential, or PIP. Think of it as waking up your muscle fibers and getting them extra excited right before they need to produce maximum force. The heavy resistance exercise, the squat, sends this really powerful signal.
So the heavy lift is sort of like the alarm clock for the muscle.
That's a great way to put it. It promotes a very specific, highly responsive neuromuscular environment. It enhances motor unit excitability and elevates something called phosphorylation of the myosin light chain.
Okay, getting a bit technical there.
Right, without getting lost in the weeds, it's basically the mechanism that lets the muscle contract more forcefully and more rapidly on the next command. This prime state is what leads to superior gains in the plyometric movement that follows.
That sounds incredibly effective. But if COX training is so powerful, why did the researchers feel the need to mess with the set structure? What's the problem with the traditional way of doing it?
The flaw is really about the cost of that intensity and the issue of consistency, especially for a team. Traditional COX, where you're pushing for high reps without any internal rest, is just brutal. It leads to rapid fatigue.
I can imagine.
And the sources note this can cause what they call non-uniform adaptations. So some players might thrive, but others just crash and burn. For a coach, that inconsistency is a disaster.
You want every single athlete on your roster to benefit equally, not just, the two biggest genetic outliers.
Precisely. And that need for consistent, repeatable results led to this study's design. They took 24 trained male volleyball players, all U19.
And they split them up.
Yep, into 3 groups of 8. The cluster sets, COX group, or CSCOX. The traditional sets group, TSCOX, and then a control group.
And the whole intervention lasted 6 weeks. Can you walk us through the actual difference in how they trained?
Absolutely. For both training groups, the core exercises were identical. Back squat or leg press at 65% of their 1-rep max, then paired with explosive squat jumps or lunge jumps. The only thing they changed was how the rest was distributed.
Let's talk about the traditional sets first. How tough are those?
The traditional sets, the TSCOX group, were designed to maximize that accumulated fatigue. For instance, by the 6th week, the athletes were doing one single set of 16 repetitions,
16 reps straight.
with 0 seconds of rest within that set. They only got a 90-second break between entire sets, so you're pushing through 16 reps, and you can just feel your power and velocity dropping with each one.
And now, compare that to the cluster sets. Where do they sneak in that break?
The cluster sets, the CSCOX group, used more but shorter rest periods. So in that same week 6, they did the same total volume, but it was structured as 2 sets of 8 reps.
Okay.
And crucially, they took a 30-second cluster rest between those 2 8-rep mini sets. Then they had a slightly shorter 60-second rest between the main exercise clusters.
Wait a minute, 30 seconds. That's barely enough time to catch your breath. How can 30 seconds possibly make such a huge difference?
That brief pause is the whole ball game. The rationale is all about metabolic rejuvenation.
Okay.
Think of your muscle cells as like cars running on high-octane fuel, ATP, and PCR. When you do 16 reps straight, those tanks drain, and byproducts like lactate build up and slam the brakes on your power.
So the engine just stalls out.
Exactly. That 30-second rest is just enough time to top off that fuel tank a little and help clear out some of the junk. It's a brief window that lets the athlete maintain a much higher training velocity, a higher power output for every single repetition.
That is a fascinating design. So before we get into where they differed, let's just establish the common ground. Both training methods were effective, right?
Absolutely. The first key finding is that both the CSCOX and the TSCOX groups had significantly greater improvements across the board compared to the control group, who didn't really change at all.
So complex training works no matter how you structure it.
It works. And it's worth noting, the program was well managed. They had 100% adherence and 0 injuries in either training group.
That's great to hear. Now, where did the two methods perform basically the same? Let's start with maximal strength.
The sources show remarkable parity here. Both set types resulted in statistically similar gains in their 1-rep max. For the 1RM leg press, the cluster group gained 9.8% and the traditional group gained 9.7%.
It's almost identical.
And in the back squat 1RM, both groups achieved an identical 10.9% gain.
Wow. So that's striking. It means if a coach's only goal is just lifting the absolute heaviest weight possible, the rest structure within the set is kind of irrelevant over 6 weeks.
That's the right interpretation. They also saw similar moderate gains in mean power output, which was measured over the full 30-second Wingate test. Both groups saw an increase of 10.8%.
So for longer, sustained power efforts, again, no real difference.
Right. And hormonally, both groups showed similar small but significant increases in resting testosterone. So both protocols successfully created that positive anabolic environment you need for growth.
Okay, so they're equal on maximal strength and general anabolic potential. This is the pivot point then.
Yeah.
Where did that 30-second pause, the cluster set, really pull ahead and offer superior adaptations?
The biggest win by far for the cluster set design was in peak power output.
That's the metric that matters most for a volleyball player, the ability to generate max force in the shortest time.
Exactly. The first 5 seconds of the Wingate test. That's your spike, your block, and the data was clear.
What did it show?
The CSCOX group, the cluster group, demonstrated a large, significant increase. The effect size was 0.72. This was significantly greater than the moderate increase seen in the traditional set group. The cluster rest just delivered more explosion.
And this really proves that metabolic rejuvenation theory, doesn't it? By having that short rest, they kept enough fuel in the tank to maintain high velocity through the set.
That's it, exactly. Traditional sets suffer from what we call velocity loss. You start strong, but by rep 10 or 12, the bar is moving slower. You're training for strength endurance at that point, not pure power.
I see.
The cluster sets let the athletes maintain that high bar speed and peak velocity for almost every rep. They were training for power in every repetition, not just the first few.
So how did this translate to movement on the court, the biomotor abilities?
The advantage carried over directly. The CSCOX group showed greater improvements across all the jumping and speed tests. They saw bigger gains in the counter movement vertical jump, the CMBJ, which measures vertical explosiveness.
And for volleyball specifically?
Crucially, they also saw better improvements in the spike jump performance itself.
What about agility, the side-to-side movement?
The T-test for change of direction speed also favored the cluster sets. The CSCOX group had a much better decrease in their time, a larger negative effect, size of -0.60. Getting faster at changing direction is massive for defense.
So better vertical, better spike jump, and faster agility. But for coaches, there was another metric you mentioned that might be the most valuable of all: consistency.
This is maybe the most compelling argument for using cluster sets in team sports. The study looked at something called residuals, which basically measures the variability between subjects.
How much the results varied from player to player within a group.
That's right. The CSCOX group showed significantly lower intersubject variability compared to the traditional group.
Meaning the results were more uniform.
Exactly. The short rest period resulted in more consistent adaptations among all the players. It stopped a few strong athletes from skewing the average, while others struggled with the fatigue.
And that's the difference between having a couple of stars and truly elevating the entire squad's baseline. It makes the training plans so much more reliable for a coach.
It creates a more robust intervention because it manages fatigue better. Traditional sets are really susceptible to individual differences in fatigue tolerance. Cluster sets seem to level that playing field.
Okay, finally, let's talk about the key hormonal adaptation, resting cortisol. Cortisol is the body's main long-term stress hormone, right? The catabolic one.
This is the perfect synthesis moment. While both groups saw a small positive decrease in cortisol, which is good, the CSCOX group displayed a significantly greater decrease in their resting cortisol levels.
How much greater?
The sources report a moderate significant decrease for the cluster group compared to only a small decrease in the traditional group.
So we have the gold standard. The cluster set approach gave them better power, more consistency, and created a better hormonal environment by reducing that key stress indicator.
It really is the magic bullet. You get similar maximal strength gains, superior peak power, and better athletic performance, all while inducing less overall physiological stress and fatigue. For a young athlete, that's crucial for long-term health.
So for the coach or the trainer who's listening right now, what's the immediate takeaway? What should they be implementing?
I think the conclusion is pretty unambiguous. A 6-week complex training program is effective, period. But if you're aiming for maximal explosive gains, better hormonal adaptation, and importantly, greater consistency across your team, incorporating cluster sets is highly recommended.
That brief 30-second rest makes all the difference.
It really does.
But the researchers themselves, Rong and Chen Xiu, pointed out some limitations, didn't they? What should we consider for future research?
Well, they noted the results are specific to trained U19 male volleyball players, and the study was only 6 weeks long. The big unanswered question is finding the truly optimal restoration.
So 30 seconds works better than 0, but is it the best?
Exactly. Future studies need to compare different cluster setups. Maybe 15 seconds versus 45 seconds. We need to dial in that metabolic sweet spot.
And of course, generalizing the findings. We need to see if these advantages hold true for female athletes or for other power sports like sprinting or basketball.
Absolutely. This study provides a fantastic foundation, but the fine-tuning is an ongoing field of optimization.
Fantastic. For you, the listener, we've distilled the core differences between cluster and traditional sets from this great piece of research, but we really do recommend reading the full article by Rong and Xiu in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine.
It'll give you the complete picture, the detailed statistical breakdowns, especially if you're designing your own athletic programs. Understanding the specifics of those consistency metrics will really enrich your application of these findings.
We hope this deep dive helps you in your own training or coaching. And remember to follow the channel and turn on your notifications so you don't miss our future dives into the latest research and knowledge that matters.